up, everybody? Welcome to the Seoulweaver Webcast. I'm your host, Will Brooks, and as always, I'm coming to you from right smack dab in the middle of Seoul, a little bit louder than I meant to, with another prepisode of the Seoulweaver Show. Today, I'm a little late. I'm sorry. I'm running behind schedule, trying to get things worked out. I moved things around this weekend in my home studio, and things are a little bit. I think I overshot with the content a little bit again this week, but we will definitely go forth with it and share everything that's on the list. Hope you guys had a great weekend. I had an all right weekend. It was an extended weekend. I did manage to get out to the Great Korean Beer Festival here in Yongsan-gu. It was at Yongsan Electronic Market, right there in between Yongsan iPark Mall and Yongsan Electronic Market. It was it didn't go as expected, to say the least. My boy Shinar could kind of chime in and let you know if he happens to join us tonight, but it was just crowded. It was a lot of people, and there's times where I forget how crowded Seoul can get. Like, I forget how crowded a small space like that is going to be once, like, things start popping off, once things start happening. So we ended up leaving early and just going over to iPark Mall. We were there with 5 adults and 3 children, all under the age of 11. It was not what it was. And I know, like, at first you're probably like, why would you take 11-year-olds and under to a great Korean beer festival anyway? Like, why would you take them? Why wouldn't you get a babysitter? But the last time we went, it was on Bumpel Bridge, and right there by Bumpel Bridge. It was on the Han River. It was it was just a lot more space. So we went there, we grabbed beers. They had food trucks there. The kids got food from the food trucks, and then the kids just ran around on the river. And obviously you don't get that when you go to Yongsan Electronic Market. So we did not have that type of venue. It was just packed. And it was mad. It was like everybody there, man. It was like, be they foreign, be they American, be they European, like the people. And I was over here conversations that really made me jealous. Like, people were just like, yeah, I went to Vietnam and I went to Great Britain, or I went to the UK, and then I stopped by, I don't know, Thailand, and I ran home to Pittsburgh for this real quick, and I went back to Japan, and now I'm back in Korea. And I was like, man, what am I doing with my life? Like, why am I not traveling? So there was a lot of talk like that, but we ended up heading out. We actually left the venue, grabbed a couple of beers, but it was crowded. Like, as soon as you get your beer, you spill it on your kid. Like, the moment you get it, it was that packed, and there was nowhere to sit down. So what we did was we headed over to iPark Mall, Yongsan iPark Mall, and we kind of just hung out there. There's a bar, I don't know, there's a Mexican bar and grill there. And it was nice, it was a cool evening. It wasn't the Great Korean Beer Festival, but we did have a good time. After that, I got sick, and my 2 extra days off of work turned into days where I was just sitting at home, wishing I hadn't taken, like, regular vacation time, wishing I had just planned on going to work and then took, like, my sick vacation time, my sick leave. But feeling better now, as you can tell. My, the sore throat is gone. I got, like, dental work done on Tuesday. It was a weekend that was just like, why did I take vacation time? Maybe I should have just went to work. Or I shouldn't have used my actual leave. In any case, hope you had a great weekend. We're getting ready to come up into another one. If you happen to get with us or see us, follow us on social media. Let me know what you got going on this weekend. I don't know much of what we're going to end up doing. Uni may have this planned out already. I actually want to go to an event that I'm going to talk about later in the show. But let's go ahead and get started. So speaking of the show, just really quick, if you haven't happened to catch the description, we're going to go over a few things today. I want to talk a little bit about, like, depression being here in Korea. And I'm not going to try to get, like, woo-woo about it. I'm not going to try to, like, give people, I'm just going to try to give you my quick perspective on it, because I actually read a few articles about the way people who've been dealing with depression, or I've seen a few different references to it. I'll talk about that in a minute. As far as current events, I want to talk a little bit about, of course, we'll talk about North Korea and U.S. relations. We'll touch on that really briefly. Talk about Ivanka Trump, who is not coming to Korea on her father's Asia tour. We'll talk a little bit about Dokdo, which I haven't heard much about in the last few. I haven't heard about Dokdo in a while, and we'll talk a little bit about the Olympics that are coming here. After that, we'll jump into a topic that is near and dear to my heart: the gentrification of Itaewon. It was in the stars. It was gonna happen. We'll talk about that in a few, and then we'll jump into social events where we'll talk a little bit about Halloween, North Korea again. If you're a fan of K-drama, one of your favorite couples is probably getting married, or they got married yesterday, and a few more things, a little bit more about K-pop, and then we'll jump into the event. So let's just jump into the podcast now. And for this podcast, I kind of came up with this topic on the spot, which probably isn't the best way to do it. I'm going to revisit this at a later date, but I wanted to talk a little bit about depression. Last week, I talked a little bit about how I didn't experience Korea the same way as other real expats experience Korea. I'm gonna stop putting that in quotations. They're real expats. That's what they differ from me in that they like picked up their toys and just came over here. And with that comes like a big difference in experiences. And one of which that I didn't touch on last weekend, in last week's episode, I talked a little bit about how my experience in Korea differs from that of real expats, because it's not the same. I'm over here, and I've from the time that I came over here in 2001, I've been over on a sponsored tour by the U.S. government, and that is basically I've worked for the U.S. government ever since my arrival here, and that creates a different environment for me. And one thing that I didn't mention in last week's episode was the fact that I had like a support channel. Now, me specifically, I came over with a very, very defined support channel. I didn't even need the support channel. I came over active duty Army. I didn't even need the support channel that active duty military provides you. I joined the military with two of my best friends on the buddy program. So we came up, like my support channel came over with me, not my mom and my immediate family, but my best friends for the last, at that point, we had been best friends, hung out like every day, all the time for the last 2 years. And if you come over in a threesome that tight to the point where you talk the same, like where their mom will call you at home, because we didn't have cell phones, your mom would call you at home and you'd answer the phone, and they would think that you were their kid because we hung out that much. We talked exactly the same. And that's who I came over here with. And that's why, I never dealt with loneliness and depression, and I never realized how fortunate I was to never have to deal with those things. Even if I had come over without my two best friends, I still would have had like a channel or an outlet in the military. If you're over here active duty military, you've got your chaplains, you've got behavioral health counseling. There's all kind of things available to you. As long as you are willing to reach out and talk to people, then you run into, there's someone there for you. It's like someone's job to be there for you. And recent articles and recent YouTube videos, just recent references online, kind of gave me a quick glimpse at what it's like to be here without your support channel, because you can't bring them with you, and without like any real, it made me realize the limitations of those of different things that can help you with get through not having that support channel here with you. And at first, I have to admit, just to be upfront with you guys, at first when I saw people, excuse me, still a little sick. At first when I saw people like going through these problems and saying that they're alone and they feel lonely and they miss their family's at home, their mom, their cousin, their sister, brother, who they can always talk to, is not there. At first I was pretty, since I've been here for a long time, since I came over at a time where you didn't have like these immediate like Skype and and Facebook dial-in. You didn't have any of this, the technology that enables you to get in contact with your family right away. I was kind of like, man, these kids, I don't know what, like, I was like this older generation looking at the younger generation thinking like, hey, what are you whining about? Like, it's not, you can call your mom literally anytime. Like, what I had to do to call my mom when I came over far exceeds what you have to do. And then what I had to do didn't compare to what the people before me had to do. Like, I couldn't imagine the people, I think when I first came over, like, the way you wanted to get a hold of somebody, you had to write a letter. You had to wait 7 days for it to get to them, then wait 7 days for them to write you back, if they wrote you back right away. But again, I started really thinking it through, because when I started looking at people through like a certain accusatory lens, I get to the point where I was like, okay, wait, maybe I'm being a little too critical here. Let me jump back and look at what I came over with. And to be quite honest, man, I think I called my mom. I got a phone card and called my mom probably every month the first 3 months I was over here. Maybe twice a month the first 3 months I was over here. And one time I called my mom, and we pretty close, man. I know my mom and I have a kind of a strange relationship. Like, we're really, really close, but she kind of groomed me to leave the house and go off and do my own thing, like baby birds, like go fly, So we may not seem close to people who are very, very close to their parents, but me and my mom are rather close. And one time I called her when I was over here, and she was like, I think I had called her the weekend before. I called her a week later, and she was like, oh, you're calling again? Like, what is there to talk about? We talked last weekend. And that was kind of my, like, once she said that, I was like, okay, I won't call you. I'll call you every other month then. And then that slowly turned into like every 2 months. And so from that third month that I was here, I got to the point where I didn't call my parents or very often. And then I had my support channel here. My best friends, like my brothers from another mothers, was like right here. So I didn't have to go through this lonely spell of being, and not like, even if they weren't there, I was in the military, man. I was in like a barracks just full of just crazy people, man. People who were just interesting that you would never have met if you hadn't joined the army. Just really unique individuals. It just never got boring, and I never really got depressed. And I don't know if I don't really suffer from depression, but if you come over without those support channels and you don't really realize what, like, I think some people come over and they don't realize what they're getting into, and they don't realize that they're not going to have their parents there to like console them. Yeah, you can get a hold of them, call them up on Facebook, and you can voice chat with them and video chat with them on Skype and things like that. But that connection of having somebody there to talk to you, like, it's thousands of miles away. It is a 15 to 20 hour flight away, depending on where you live. If you're in the States, and if you're here, and then it's a lot of money to fly back too. You can't just always jump on a plane and spend that money to fly back home just because you need to be consoled by your support channel. It's just not available to you. And so that's a real thing to think about before you come over, and something that you should really consider if you're really close to your family, and really, like, if you really, maybe sometimes people don't realize how much they depend on their family to be their support channel, or their friends to be their support channel when they have them there. They just don't realize it until they get overseas and realize, oh my God, I can't call up Karen and just have her come over and just take my mind off things. I should have got some water. So that's one thing to consider before you come over. And I saw a few different references of people who have been struggling with depression while they were over here. I think the first one I saw, the one I saw most recently was an article from Korea Expose. And Korea Expose is a news magazine, an online news magazine that is slowly becoming one of my like favorite, maybe not, I don't know. This week they're my favorite news outlet, because the articles that they have been very interesting. And this one was about a student at I think she's at Dongguk University, who recently found herself needing her support channel and trying to stick it out and trying to be tough, trying to be a student here, and just trying to buckle down and really study and achieve her goals. And she ended up ended up attempting suicide. She didn't successfully attempt suicide, but it wasn't a successful attempt. But she tried to commit suicide by taking a bunch of pills. And as I'm reading the story, the thing she looks like she tried to reach out to what is available here, and she didn't get much in response. I'm terribly sorry, guys. But there wasn't a lot. There's not a lot there. Not a lot of options. There are channels here for you, especially if you happen to come over and be a student here. The schools will usually have some kind of support channel for you, but it's not always optimized. And I think that's what the situation she ran into, and the situation a lot of students run into, is that their universities have like this general foreigner international student help line or help support channel, and it's not really unique. It's not really all that great of a channel, just because it's just a generalized help the student out. And I definitely share, I believe I put the article from the Korea expose in the description, but I'll double check that. You should check out the article, particularly if you're young and if you're coming to Korea and you're going to leave home for the first time, like really leave home for the first time. This is definitely something you may want to check out, because I don't think a lot of people consider what things will be like when they get over here. One thing that stuck out to me, a few things that stuck out to me about this article, is the girl tried to get help, and she tried to reach out to her friends, but she wasn't close enough to her friends, because you don't make friends. You don't really get that close to your friends over here. You get really cool, and you spend a lot of time together. You hang out together a lot, but you're usually just having fun together, not so much getting serious together. So and I think friendships as a whole, that they just don't get that. They don't get developed that strongly, because anybody you're gonna know them for what, like 2 years. It's very rare that you find people in my case who have friends that they've known for the better part of 15 years, 16 years. I've had friends that I've known for a long time, and you won't really run into that a lot. And I'll get into that a little bit more later. But she tried to reach out to her friends. She tried to reach out to the university and try to get some counseling when she went in to help and get help from the support channels that the university offers foreign students. But they were going to introduce her to a teacher they're going to set her up with a teacher that she didn't really care for. And so she didn't feel comfortable. That was the only option. So she never kept the appointment. But she ended up, taking some pills. She called her boyfriend. And that's another thing that stuck out to me about this. She had a boyfriend. She had mutual friends or other friends that kind of, banded with her and kind of came to her aid and need. But there are some people over here with no friends at all. One, she had all that and she still was feeling depressed. And two, there are some people who don't have friends that close and haven't made relationships like that. They are like on the island over here. And what would have happened if she was one of those people? So I wanted to, and then I guess I've got one more example. Is from Rocky Wright, and she was a YouTuber here in Korea. I think she was going to school over here. She ended up leaving, and when she got back to the States, she shared a video about what happened to her in Korea. And it just turns out, she was out. Things got a little wild, as they do here in Korea. You got young people drinking and having fun, and drinking more and having fun, and drinking more. Il cha, I cha, sam cha, like going to like bar hopping and just getting wasted. And she had an encounter that she shares on her YouTube page or her YouTube channel. And after she had that encounter, she realized that her support channel wasn't there. She realized that, yeah, she can call her mom, like I was explaining. She can call her mom, or she can call her friends, her family, but everybody that she was gonna talk to is thousands of miles away. And she just can't get up and go talk to them and get that FaceTime that you normally get when you're in the States. And so that started this, decline in her health. And that started this road down depression. And she sounds like she was really depressed once she came to grips with that. And she had a hard time getting back on track. And I mean, that really makes me feel for these these young people that come over, like especially when you're a little bit younger. Like I think when I came over, by the time I got over here, I just wanted to get away from home, and I didn't care where I went. It was like a different thing. I had never even heard of Korea, so there was no lure that brought me over here. And I think with some of the people now that come over nowadays, like I don't want to say the newer generation, because I don't consider myself that much older, but they're like 10, 15 years younger than me. So and there's been 10, 15 years of change in Korea, and they come over with like a lure, like come over here, and they got the universities offering scholarships and all kind of things. The Korea wave that tells them that Korea is just so cool, come over, and it is. But when they get here, they just don't consider they don't consider the things I considered when I came over, because I was like, man, I'm going to get over there. There's not going to be any way to communicate. I thought that through when I came over, and I don't think that's exactly what they do. And there's just some aspects of Korea that you don't really expect. One, like I was talking about friends earlier, is like the turnover around you is really high. It's like a year and a half in the army, but I imagine it's really high like in like university settings too, because people come in for a semester sometimes and they dip out. And what that means is you very rarely have the chance to get that close to people, as I was mentioning. And I guess I could have just mentioned this earlier. Like it's the turnover that makes it crazy. And there are a lot of different things that are lacking here. Like there's a lack of like treatment for mental health here. I don't think and maybe it's not a lack of mental treatment. And that's why I said I probably should have done this. I'm going to revisit this because I'm going to find out some options for mental treatment or mental health treatment. But like there's not a lot of places you can just go get counseling in English. And even in the places where you can go get it, if you have to pay for it, it's expensive. And so I've actually gone and tried to see somebody about things that I struggle with here. And it was just like the price was like, man, I'm not balling out of control, but I make decent money and I could not really afford it. Like just those initial visits would have set me back a little bit. And then if I had continued to see them, I would have been like in the hole almost by the time I got done. And I'm kind of established. I'm not a student over here going to school. So that kind of throws you off too. And one last incident I saw, it was actually just a Facebook post where someone was basically asking people for help because she wasn't struggling through depression when she came here. She struggles with depression no matter what, even when she was at home. But she had some medication that she was taking that she was told that she would be able to get a hold of when she got here. And so when she came over, she either had an outlet to get that medication and it got taken away from her over time, or the outlet didn't exist and she was only left with the meds that she had and she could not replenish them. She couldn't mail them over because maybe that's what it was. She couldn't get them mailed over because like standard medication standards had changed. And she couldn't, she couldn't get them through customs or something along those lines. In any case, she had access to it and it got taken away. And now she has to fly back home every time she needs to refill her medication. And she found herself not being able to go back home at this particular time. And she was out of meds. And there was nowhere available that she knew of where she could get a refill. And so I saw there were a lot of people. She actually shared this post on Facebook. A lot of people jumped in and chimed in and tried to help her out and get her in touch with somebody back at home who can get it to her or something along those lines. And I think she did end up getting a little bit of help, but that's kind of where you're at. You have to rely on other people to help you out, because even though you're exhausting exhausting all your efforts or exhausting all your options, you end up not getting the help that you need. So if you struggle with depression, if you're on medication, if you're really close to your family, please think those things through before you come over. I'm not saying don't come over, but plan around it and be aware that there will be some loneliness and depression. Even for me, even when I came over with my support channel, there's been times, at some point in time, I was here, like everybody split out. I've been here for a long time. So everybody was kind of gone. It's just me. And I did kind of experience a little bit of loneliness and depression. You walk around, I would walk around, and everybody would be like eating and drinking with their boys. And like Koreans only hang out with people that they really know. So they've been boys for a long time. And I got those same exact counterparts, but they're back in the state. My boy Anthony and me, we've been tight since second year of high school. And we came over to Korea together. You'll hear about Anthony. I don't know. We're going to have him on the show one of these days. But when I realized I was here without him, I kind of did go through a little spell of like loneliness, and just had to deal with it. And that's with a family. That's with a wife and a kid and a mother-in-law constantly wanting a piece, you know. So I think next week's Prepisode is gonna be the last Prepisode, and I think I'm going to talk a little bit about being a dad in Korea, or being a father, or trying to be the rock of a family in a foreign country, because that's a bit of a challenge in itself. So that's a quick spoiler for what will happen next week. And believe me, if you happen to know of anyone who has problems, I'm actually going to go talk to a behavioral health specialist at my job. I work at a hospital, and see if he knows of any counterparts of his on the economy where you can actually get some help. And I'll kind of share that information in the Seoulweaver Facebook group. So join me there. I'll try to remember to come back and update the description here if I can. I'll try to remember, man. I'm really bad at that. So that's all I got for the podcast. This is where I would usually cut and set aside my audio version of the podcast and jump into the current event show, or the current events segment. So we're gonna do that right now. Let me make sure I have everything straight. I'm sorry, I forgot I rearranged everything, and I may not. Yeah, we gotta do this real quick. So a lot going on in current events. Not terribly good, not terribly bad. I will talk a little bit about Halloween, because Halloween is crazy in Korea. Am I sweating that bad, man? Might be time to get up, turn on the fan. If it wasn't so loud. Bear with me one moment, guys. Okay. So first things first is this a U.S. North Korean defector, the highest ranking North Korean defector, says that U.S. and North Korea should need a summit is necessary between the U.S. and North Korea to solve the nuke crisis, and according to him. And this guy, what's his name? His name is Tae Young Ho. He's actually a former deputy chief at the North Korean embassy to London, and he defected to South Korea with his wife and his two kids a year ago, I believe. And what he's saying is, and it's so funny to like say this out loud, but according to him, he recommends that the U.S. meet with Kim Jong-un before considering military action against Kim Jong-un's regime. And it's almost crazy that has to be said, right? Like, no, meet with them and talk to them to see if you can talk this out before you go and attack. Because the military action should be a last option. And it's kind of crazy to imagine that it has to be said. Like, they haven't even talked yet. That's what's bonkers about this whole thing. Like, there hasn't been any real dialogue back and forth. They've both been kind of beefing it through the news and through the media and social media, but there's been no actual talks. And to be honest, I don't think I mentioned this last week. North Korea and South Korea haven't talked. I don't think there's been any actual communication, direct communication, back and forth through to the countries, back and forth between the countries, since Kaesong province closed down. I don't even know what year that was. Was that 2013, 14? It's been a long time for there to be no dialogue between North Korea and South Korea. The reason this caught my attention is because what Mr. Thay is preaching, or what he's calling for, is for America to try to use in like information warfare, like get information to the public in North Korea and let them know what the world is like. Getting outside information to the public in North Korea will let them know what the world is like outside of North Korea, because the real strength of North Korea or of Kim Jong-un is that he keeps his people in the dark. They don't know what the rest of the world is like, reportedly. And so since they don't realize what's going on, they're only taking what Kim Jong-un has told them, or what the regime tells them the rest of the world is what's going on in the rest of the world. And to be completely honest, when you have a lot of talk like what we've seen from the U.S. politicians, with Lindsey Graham saying, millions are going to die over there, and with Donald Trump saying that we have to totally destroy North Korea, with those kind of blurbs, they really don't have to make up that much. Although, I got a little treat for you guys a little bit later. You'll see how much they make up when we get to the lighter half of the show. But yeah, what's really interesting about this guy, he's calling for that information exchange, because not just for no reason. That's actually what convinced him, or what motivated him to defect. And he mentioned that he couldn't take his kids back to a life of modern slavery after they had been out of the country. They've been on Facebook, they've been gaming, they've been doing all this stuff that is just life, that is almost like American part of, like some things that we take for granted in America. They've been doing all that, and he was like, man, I can't take them back to North Korea after this. And so he defected to South Korea. And you would think that's what most North Korean defectors end up with, but that's not the case. I don't know if you guys happen to catch it, but in one of these live broadcasts, I don't know if it was live actually, but in one of these broadcasts, I talked about a North Korean defector that wanted to go home. So they don't all get the treatment. We'll talk about that at some point in time. We'll talk about what happens to you if you defect from North Korea, if you happen not to be a high-ranking official like this guy is. But I understand where he's coming from, and I think his motivation, I think what he's calling for, his strategic plan, maybe not strategic plan, but this goes above what I know here in Korea. But if you can get information to the North Korean population, then maybe they will react as he has reacted, not just to defect, but to realize that you can't really trust what Kim Jong-un regime is telling you. If he's just telling you, your life is hunky-dory here, it's great here, you should see what's going on outside. And by the way, everybody outside wants to destroy you. Yeah, that's all I got on that. It's pretty crazy to realize where we are with this whole North Korea situation. Also related to Donald Trump is Ivanka skipping the visit to Seoul and Beijing. Donald Trump is he's leaving on a tour this Friday, day after tomorrow, our time, I guess. Tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, stateside time. He's leaving on a tour to visit Asia. He's gonna hit Japan, South Korea, China, Vietnam, and the Philippines, and he's gonna stop by Hawaii on the way home. But he's gonna come to these countries, and Ivanka's going to accompany him to Japan, but she's going to skip out on the South Korea and China trip. And she's doing this, and she's doing this under the guise of going back home and helping with the tax plan. And it's like, man, really? You're the president of the United States. You got like all these terrible businessmen, all these guys from Wall Street that are just capable of coming up with a horrible tax plan that takes money from all these different governmental support channels and gives it to the rich anyway. So what do you need Ivanka Trump there to come up with that for? I'm sure Mnuchin is going to do, actually is Mnuchin out? I'm sure Gary Cohn, those guys are going to do just fine and coming up with a terrible tax plan. And the reason I call this terrible, I hate to go into politics, but the reason I call this terrible is because of what happened in Kansas with this same trickle-down economics tax policy. If you can explain that to me, why that failed and why the same policy for on the federal level or on the federal government level won't fail, I'll listen to you. But if you're calling, like if you not calling, but if you, I don't know, if you don't know, if you can't explain that, then I just can't. We watched it happen. It's obviously bad for the economy. And I'm sure those guys can come up with that without Ivanka. The crazy thing about being here in Korea is, being here in Asia, and the crazy thing about like Ivanka canceling this trip, why it's news, because I wasn't going to share it at first, but the response that Asia has had to her trip, like they were kind of ramping up for it, because Ivanka and Jared, they kind of fit this, this beautiful American family stereotype that goes on in Korea. And I mentioned that because when I taught English, the ideal stereotype for an English teacher, like if you wanted somebody to really teach you English, you wanted somebody to look just like Ivanka Trump. And I actually ran into issues. Well, I was a little adorable, so I didn't have any real problems getting work, but I ran into issues where you would find like people of color, people who didn't look the part of a blonde Caucasian woman. You would find them having hard times getting jobs because they just didn't fit the bill that they were looking for. The vast majority of entities wanted somebody looks just like Ivanka to teach English, because that was the ideal English teacher. And so when you find them, like, that's why I saw people talking back and forth about her trip, and they were like, well, most of the Asians don't want her to come over, most of the Koreans don't want her to come over, and the Chinese don't want her to come over. Yeah, maybe the people who work in her sweatshops don't want her to come over, but I think the vast people that have no connection to her, that only see her through the eyes of the media, they actually wanted her to come over, and they're very disappointed that she's not coming. Kushner's still coming. They're like, yeah, there's like one line in the article that I'm talking about. Kushner's coming, but that's like it. They don't really care. Trump is, and then there was another interesting blurb in there. They were talking about how Trump won't visit the DMZ, and I was like, what? Thank God, man. These people has been actually killed at the DMZ. I think the highest ranked person to be killed at the DMZ is a major. I'm sure there'd be a ton more security going up there, but we don't need Trump to go up to the DMZ. We're already a little nervous about him coming to Korea. He might do something crazy. So just keep him down south. Nothing out of the line. He wanders from behind bulletproof glass too much. We don't need him getting assassinated. He annoys me. You don't want him to die. And then on to another topic that is unrelated to North Korea and South Korea relations, but it is related to Japan and South Korea relations, is Dokdo. If you haven't heard about Dokdo, it's like this little cluster of islands. I think there's like 2 little islets. They don't even call them islands. They're like islets. And they're like these, it looks like nothing, man. It just looks like rocks in the ocean. But South Korea and Japan have been fighting over this since my arrival back in 2012. And it's been like pretty heated debates, but finally it looks like Japanese people are losing interest in Dokdo. According to a recent poll, the interest level has dropped from 66.9% to 59.3% over the last 3 years. And I think that's a significant drop considering how serious of an issue it was 3 years ago. And to be completely honest, I never understood this really, man. Like, not only did I not understand it because it's just like rocks in the ocean, but I'm guessing like the waters around them are very, very important. But I never understood it because I was like, if it's an island, like who lives there? Like what people are on the island? Are they Japanese or are they Korean? They're Korean. Like, oh, okay. Then isn't it part of Korea? Like Korea has a small police detachment there. And I don't know, maybe Japan has some people on the island too. I am reading this from a Korean article. But it's pretty crazy to see like the extent that they've been like fighting over this island over all this time. This won't go away. I really think sometimes I think it's like a Japanese ploy to just stop talking about something for a few years and then bring it back up like you agreed on the solution, like, and like they'll come back here like, I don't know, maybe 5 years from now, and Japan will be like, no, we've already discussed this. You said it was our island. Like, no, and Korea will be like, no, we didn't. That's never what we it was never resolved. And I swear it seems like that's what happens. I don't know. Again, I get my news through Korean channels. It's probably completely different. in Japan. And if you're an expat in Japan, English speaking expat in Japan, I'd be curious to hear what you guys think about this, because they call it something different in Japan, obviously. But I'm curious what Japanese people are saying about Dokdo, because Korean people are seriously passionate about it. Speaking of passion and something, oh no, I'm sorry, we are talking about K-pop. Not at all passionate about K-pop. I've told you guys before, I am more of a fan of K-pop girl groups than I am a fan of K-pop itself. Although this is kind of interesting because it actually talks about one of the boy band groups or acts that I like. And I guess that's a story in itself. But K-pop stars celebrate the arrival of the Olympic flame in Korea. So the Olympic torch arrived yesterday, and if you're unaware, the 2018 Winter Olympics are taking place here in Korea in Pyeongchang. I better not have said that wrong. And I don't know. It's a big deal. The Olympics haven't been in Korea for 30 years. They hosted the Summer Olympics in 1988, and that like turned the country around. Like the country really changed after that happened. Although that's not always the case, man. You see, like the Olympics, what it did to Rio de Janeiro, like in Brazil, they were not happy to have the Olympics there. That's not the case here. It seems like Korean people are pretty pumped to have the Olympics come here, but there has been like a lackluster. I have seen articles that refer to lackluster sales of tickets. Like there's not a real big. I don't know. There's just no. The ticket sales are kind of lacking. And so you can still get tickets to the Olympics. Me and Uni got some for some neighbors like 4 weeks ago. And it's the time is the tickets are there. They look like they're not sold out. They're good seats available. They're a little expensive, but it's the Olympics in Korea, so I'm sure we'll go. We should hurry up though, because our style is to wait till the last minute and not do stuff. So we're gonna go ahead. I'm gonna ping Uni to get tickets this weekend. And I think what it is it's the Winter Olympics. And I don't really know what I want to watch. Like, do I want to watch ice hockey or the long jump? I would pay money to see the long jump. I've never seen anybody do that in real life. So, and never seen anybody do it on the level of like an Olympian. So that's what we'll be looking to go to this. We'll be sharing it and doing YouTube videos on it. So you can stay tuned to this channel. Subscribe if you want to see that happen next year. Or I don't know. It'll be in place. And it's pretty cool that, I mean, it's, you're in Korea because you get welcomed with K-pop, and they had like 2 different venues going to celebrate the arrival of the Olympic flame, and they had something going here in downtown Seoul, of course, in City Hall. You had like different groups perform there, and you had the same thing going on in Incheon, where the airport is. It's pretty cool. Day 6 is the group I was talking about that I actually like, and I don't really know if I like Day 6, but I went to a live K-pop taping for the show here in Korea a number of months ago. I actually have footage on that I need to put together and share with you guys. But it was a weird experience because I don't really know any of the groups anymore because I'm not really paying attention to music, and particularly like K-pop, just because it's been like, I mean, I've been here for a long time, man. K-pop has been done to death in my mind, but we were sitting there, we were watching it, we were having a good time. There were pretty good groups on, and you had like different groups come on, people go crazy in different parts of the crowd. But I was sitting like with a bunch of foreigners, except for like these Korean groups that they brought in at the end that were sitting right next to us, right? And like the girl that was sitting directly next to me was not excited at all about any group. And then Day 6 came on, and she went freaking ballistic, and I was just like, whoa, and even like she went so crazy that I got a little crazy. And I mean, she was like, just oppa. Like it was just like I was like feeding off her energy, and so like I actually remembered the song, remember the name of the group, and came back and like listened to them a few times. And they're actually pretty cool because they're like in between a K-pop group and a band, and I like live music. I don't know if they're really playing their instruments, but that's just my Day 6 story, and it's why they and I guess EXO are probably my favorite groups, and EXO's kind of just, they're my favorite boy groups. In any case, we will go on to a topic that I am a lot more passionate about, and that is an article that, again, is coming from Korea Expose, and it's talking about the end of Itaewon as we know it. Definitely, this was in the stars. In the article, it talks about how Itaewon is going to be developed. I actually did a video on this. I'll share it, and I'll come back and update it in the description. I didn't add that to the description initially, but I did a video about this because Korea itself, I mean, like, different parts of Seoul, just like anywhere else, are being like bought up, developed, bought up, demolished, developed, and then just turned into like high-rise apartments. As you can see here, like if you see this, I don't know how clear that is, but you can see that it's actually cut off a little bit. You can kind of see what I'm talking about as far as it being like they just take all the regular the regular houses and stuff, and they turn them into these beautiful. I mean, they're nice high rises. Like I don't live in a high rise, but I live in a pretty decent sized apartment complex, and it's it's nice living. It's it's a step up. There's a lot of security. There's a lot of things available to us. There's a lot of conveniences. But it definitely, I used to live in a place called Huamdong, and I used to live in a villa there, and the neighborhood was a lot more quiet, a lot more quaint when we would walk around there. You just had like, I don't know, it was just a much homier environment. It was a lot more personal when you walked around. You dealt with the tailor down the street, or the repairman around the corner. And it's not quite like that when you get into these new apartments. Everything, like all the individuality kind of goes away. And when they do that to a place like Itaewon, that's always been known to be a little more unique to like foreigners there. You got the military base there. You got a huge foreign population there. When you take Itaewon and kind of start to develop that, what's going to happen. You're going to get a lot of foreigners kicked out of there. And the rents are going to get hiked up when they redevelop the places. And I remember seeing protests near Seoulweaver, and I was asking my excuse me, as we rolled by, I asked Uni like, hey, what are they protesting over there? And she said, oh, they're gonna upgrade they're gonna develop this area, so they're protesting the development. And I remember looking at her and being confused, like, why wouldn't they want like shiny new houses? And that's just my modern mind, or the influence of modernization on my brain, not realizing what was going on. Most of the people who were out there protesting, most of the people that live in that area, don't really own the land. They don't own the property. They're renting. And so they'll be made homeless by this development. They'll be displaced by this whole thing, because the people who get like the brand new shiny apartment are the people who own it that don't even live there. And they'll be renting it out for a price that the people who used to live there can't afford. And that's what you'll run into in Itaewon, this place that's got a lot of foreigners living in there and, occupying that space. Excuse me. Sorry. All these foreigners that are there occupying this space, they're going to get displaced, and they're going to have to go elsewhere because they're not going to be able to afford that crazy high rent that you get with brand new apartment complexes, particularly there in Itaewon, because Itaewon's geographical location is like right in between City Hall and it's just right dead center of Seoul. And I mean, I live just across the tracks from Itaewon, well, across the tracks and across the base from Itaewon. And like, that's why you hear me say I'm coming to you from right smack dab in the middle of Seoul, because Yongsan-gu itself is right in central Seoul. And so like developers have had their eye on that distinct location for a long time. And there was nothing that was going to stop them from developing it. And if you look closely, you can kind of see how this is going to go, because it's not going to be, it's going to, I'll come back and visit this later. There's going to be some time. So what's gone on is people have come in, bought up the land, they own it, they all get together, they vote on what to do with the land. The people who live there vote not to develop it because they don't want it to be developed, because they know they'll be kind of moved out of there. And then the people and then they just get like a slight margin of a majority, and then the decision is made to develop the land, even though 45% of the people who own the land there and who live there don't want it to be developed. but it happens anyway, and it's I mean, it's happening all over Korea. Again, I'll link up that. I'll shoot you over that link, or I'll leave that link in the description of the video I did, where they're just gonna buy up land, develop it, and then move on. The funny thing is that it's weird. It shows you how housing is almost. It seems to be pretty like immune to the ideas of supply and demand. Like it just doesn't look like supply and demand applies when it comes to housing. Like there's just high rises. They always go in, they take these areas that have maybe 3 or 4 story villas in them, they bulldoze it all, recreate it, or build up all these housing. They like increase the density of the population by maybe 24 times in each building. I don't know, like 30 times the population increased, and then they still managed to fill the apartments. And they're doing this not only in certain pockets of Seoul, not only down the street from my house and in Itaewon coming soon, but like all around Gyeonggi-do, the state that surrounds Seoul. So you see it happening all over the place, but the pricing doesn't seem to be going down. It's still very expensive. When I say very expensive, I mean like my rent is 5 million won a month. That is pricey. Like who like everybody can't be able to afford that. And I'm sure like Koreans, like the Korean population doesn't really pay by the month. They actually purchase their apartments, but it's still extremely expensive when you get to purchasing these apartments in Seoul. It's like buying an apartment in Manhattan. So at some point in time, it's like, dude, like everybody can't afford this. You're gonna run out of people to sell it to. You'd think that would have happened by now. It's not happening. I'm gonna miss old Itaewon, man, because I think what happens is once that and in Itaewon, I mean, it was kind of ghetto, it was kind of raunchy, but it was, I mean, I've been hanging out there since I was 19, so it was my ghetto raunchy version of Korea. And slowly it's been like I've been excited about like the new developments that's been going on, how they've been kind of stepping things up. And then you realize like, oh, they're stepping it up because they're gonna change it all. It's not even gonna be a place where you can hang out in the same manner. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing. I mean, everything has its positives and its negatives. So that's it. I'm gonna go ahead and take a quick break and grab a beer. We'll come back. We'll go over social media and upcoming events, and we're gonna do like we're gonna do the keeping it light half, where we just sit here and talk about whatever. I'm gonna grab myself a beer. I shall return. Let's go ahead and throw this on the break, and I will leave you guys with my theme music. We're gonna come up with something more than just the theme music to play while I'm on break. That's in the future. I shall be right back. What is up, everybody? I am back with the social media and upcoming events session. This is a session where we keep it real light, and I actually pay attention to the live chat. We have nobody really viewing right now, so that's not a thing that we need to worry about. But we're in Prepisode mode. Not much saving, not much sharing going on. So that will come in due time. I'm actually gonna sit here and talk a little bit about a couple of things that I don't even really know that much about, man. Not this though. So one thing that is pretty crazy about Korea that's always been a bit of a surprise to me. I wanted to share something else on here. Let me see if I can find it. One thing, my buddy Colburn had shared something that I wanted to share with you guys. One thing about South Korea is they love, like, in foreign pockets in Itaewon, like we were just talking about, they love Halloween. Like, it's crazy. It gets bananas. Like in Haebangchang, Gyeonggi-dan, and Itaewon, like, foreigners dress up so much for Halloween, and that is starting to, like, spread, man. It's starting to become something completely different. And so this is actually a picture of one of my Facebook friends, James Hippo. Hippo or Hippo? He's actually from Japan. His wife is Korean. And if you, like, that's some pretty extensive Halloween makeup right there, man. That is almost like scaring me. That dude with the blood. Hang on one quick second. And like, this is something that you see now that you just didn't see. You only saw a little bit when you first got here. They were pretty crazy. I'm trying to find another picture that my friend posted to show you how crowded Itaewon was during Halloween. Hang on one second. See if I can find it. But Itaewon gets bananas during Halloween now. It was, and I mentioned it before, but I mentioned it before in last week's episode when I mentioned all the parties. But it gets more and more crazy every time I see it. Let me clip this real quick because I want you guys to know, like, how bonkers it can be. Well, looks like that's not gonna happen. I can't find a picture. I apologize. Man, I should have grabbed it right when I saw it. But yeah, it gets freaking bonkers, man. If you have any footage, feel free to, like, share it, especially if you happen to be part of the group. Go ahead and share it and let us know, just kind of point out what was going on. I told a story about a guy that I was in a reserve army with, man. He was like this 6 foot tall white dude, man. But he went as a French maid for Halloween, and, like, he just had so many people stopping him taking pictures that he couldn't even make it through he couldn't even make it through town. It was just so many people that were just like, no, like, we gotta take a picture. And he eventually had to get, like, rude and say, no, I'm sorry guys, I'm missing my party. I've been here for an hour. I'm gonna go ahead and head out. On to the next thing. This is what I was making reference to earlier. North Korea and their propaganda, like, knows no bounds, man. And this is why you have to get, like, information out to the public, because this is what they're getting. This is like North Korean, like, winning all kinds of events. And you see the actual caption there. Weapons of mass delusion. Outrageous North Korean propaganda artwork surface depicting the dictatorship as the greatest sports nation in the world. I mean, back in the day, when I used to hear about North Korean propaganda, and I used to hear, like, people tell stories about, I don't know, like, just the flag, the North Korean flag that is up in the propaganda town. First, there's a propaganda town that's on the border in between North Korea and South Korea, and then the flag there is just freaking massive, right? And the story of why that flag is so big is because North Korea and South Korea have like competing towns, competing propaganda towns, maybe not propaganda in South Korea, but competing towns where they kind of, like, try to one up each other. And they were trying to do that with the flag. And it eventually got to the point where like South Korea would make a flag, and then North Korea make a bigger flag, and South Korea make a flag, and North Korea make an even bigger flag, and South Korea make an even bigger flag. And it went back and forth until South Korea was just like, all right, fuck it, guys, you win. Like seriously, like is the flag that important? And I was like, man, that story ain't true. I mean, like that's something that neighbors do. That's not something that neighboring countries do. Might not be the case. That flag is huge, man. It looks like a big flag from, like I've seen it in person. It looks like a huge flag from miles and miles away. I can't imagine how big it is in real life. But yeah, man, this is like, it's like information. Like they control the information in South Korea. Like people got to understand, or excuse me, in North Korea. Well, they control it. I think media controls the information in all countries, particularly, you know, ours that are capitalist countries and democratic countries, because our opinions matter so much. But the rate at which they control it in North Korea, like it can't be. There's no transparency. It can't be double checked. And anybody who knows it's false, like, is in on the joke, right? Like, maybe not the joke, but they're in on the game. Like, they're part of the. Anybody who's been outside of North Korea kind of knows that the government is controlling what's being told to the vast majority of people, and if they tell somebody, something happened to them. So yeah, this is what you're seeing here is in the upper left hand corner is a boxer who's obviously been. I guess it's one of their boxers who's being told that he, like, they're saying won all these matches. You got a runner in the upper right hand corner, soccer players winning the World Cup down in the bottom left hand corner, and in the bottom right hand corner, and in the bottom left hand corner is a little girl beating a big scary American man at what's that game? I forgot the name of the game. Moo? The Korean checkers lookalike game, the one that Google taught their AI how to play. I don't know, man. I mean, this is just so. It seems so childish, but I guess it works, and this is why. Yim, I forgot his name. Yeah, no, he didn't have a name that I've ever heard. Tae Young Ho was saying that it's all about getting information to the population because they don't know what's really going on. On to something that will drive like Descendants of the Sun crazy, the fans crazy. Song Joong Ki and Song Hye-kyo got married yesterday. Those are the two main characters from Descendants of the Sun. Everybody went so ballistic about this drama. I bet it was good, but I never watched it. I don't know, man. Like I can't watch TV, right? Like ever since, like I'm a gamer, man. Ever since I could control what the characters on the screen do, I don't want to watch them do it without my control on TV anymore. I don't know. I don't watch, and it's not just that I don't watch Korean drama. I don't watch like American Netflix dramas. Like I don't watch The Walking Dead. I don't watch freaking Game of Thrones. I didn't even watch the whole thing of Breaking Bad. It's just not my thing. I don't like watching TV anymore. And honestly, if I'm not watching a movie in a theater, I might not watch the movie. I was supposed to take Will to see Lego Ninja Go. Is it Ninja Go? Is it Ninja Go or Ninjago? We were supposed to go watch that in Korean theaters, and we had a hard time. And a new thing about Korean theaters that I'm noticing, which makes sense, is that animated movies are no longer shown with subtitles. Like when you're watching Korean movies in Korea, or when you're watching American movies in Korea, the vast majority of the movies are shown with Korean subtitles on the right or displayed somewhere on the screen, and the movie is in English. And a long time ago, maybe not a long time ago, but a while ago, that was the case with even like kids shows, like kids movies. Like there were like subtitles, and the movie was in English. And suddenly I started noticing that the vast majority of movies being shown were dubbed. Like there was no English. There was just Korean language dubbed over like the characters. And I was like, man, why is this happening all of a sudden? But then you realize, oh yeah, they're kids movies, man. Kids don't want to read. Adults don't want to read. Some kids can't read, so they probably will benefit more from dubbing than they will from subtitles. So that's that. Yeah, these two got married. I think, I mean, normally I wouldn't make a big deal about it. I wouldn't even toss it in here. But two beautiful people getting married at a beautiful wedding. Yeah, just even I'm like, ooh, even like if I had watched it, I'd be like, like I try to imagine if like B and I used to love Full House as an old old Korean drama, and B the performer, like the musician B, was on there, and what's her name? Oh my god, I can't believe I forgot her name. Used to be a crush, the one with the mole. I forgot her name. Anyway, she was on it too, Chun Ji-yeon. And if they would have got married, I'd have been like, yeah, back in the day, but not a big deal. This was something that I just saw and I thought was pretty interesting and wanted to share with you guys because this guy, Ask a Korean, is a blogger that it looks like he's a YouTuber too, that puts together like some pretty extensive. He puts together some pretty good posts, and the sheer numbers of this one actually caught my attention. And my bad, I didn't even write it down on my notes to say how many, but it was like 120. It's 120 of the best K-pop idol songs from the last 10 years. As you know how long K-pop been around and why I'm kind of over it, man. 10 freaking years of best K-pop idol songs. It's actually put together by somebody named Youngdae Kim. And I don't know who Youngdae Kim is, but it says he's one of the moderators of like Korea's biggest hip hop blog. So I'm sure it started in the early 90s. I'm sure Uni knows a lot about this blog. Like my wife is an old hip hop head from back in the day. Like when I started listening to hip hop, like when I got my driver's license, like when I was in middle school. That's when because she's a little older than me. So like, I mean, she was listening. She was like anytime we go out and meet people that were part of this same blog, I'm sure it's the same one. But when she went and met, like anytime you go out, you'll be talking to people. And if they say like they used to be on this blog, they know who each other are. Like if they give them like their handle name, they're like, oh yeah, I remember you were talking about this and that. You're the one to show me about this, because hip hop was so like small and drawn up. Like it was this little bitty niche environment back in the day. And and then the idea, like this is before Napster, before Pirate Bay and BitTorrent and all that stuff. Not like I know what those things are because I never pirate anything, but these were like back, this was back before it was easy to get a hold of this stuff. Like everything was on CD or cassette even, and they couldn't get them in Korea because they just had a hard time getting all that stuff sent over with like tariffs and stuff involved and things like that. So it's pretty crazy to see like somebody mention that. I'm probably from the group, but 120 of the best K-pop songs, that's a lot. That's a lot. And I really appreciate it when people put together like big ass posts like that. So I wanted to share it with you guys. If you like K-pop, and you know, we're one of the people that goes a little crazy for that, and he's got like the most influential songs over the last 10 years. It's pretty cool. I'm sure these 10 minutes is on there because there was a point in time where you couldn't go anywhere without hearing that song, and now people don't even know who Ihori is. You know how I know I'm getting old? Like the young badass people that were around, they look old now. And like got kids that were our age when I first discovered them. Maybe not that old, but it's pretty crazy to see. It's pretty crazy to watch time go by and realize that like it's just speeding up. It's pretty crazy. There's also another post that he references on here, the 50 most influential K-pop artists. He hasn't finished that, but there's 44 out of 50 done. So check out Ask a Korean. I think I'm sure he's here. I don't know where he is actually. I should check him out and see if I can get him on the show, even if he's in the States, just because he got his ear to the ground. And I would love to have him share information with you guys. And I don't know, entertainment. Sometimes I want to do like an entertainment like segment. I'm just not into it enough to actually get it, like to actually give you any real insight on it. So we gotta get somebody else to do it. And then lastly, this is just a funny little post I saw. This is what this social media thing is really about. Let me go ahead and change a little bit. But it's a funny little post I saw a friend of mine share about a guy on a subway, right? And you have to really, you have to have been here in Korea, and well, maybe not even here in Korea. You have to have been on a crowded subway to understand why this is such a dick move, man. So this dude, let me get the picture bigger so you can see what's going on. Excuse me. While I'm doing that, I can't even see what my boy wrote on here. Probably should have wrote it down in here, but this is what's going on. This is on a subway in Korea during traffic hour or like rush hour. And if you've never been like on a subway in Korean rush hour, it's crazy packed. Like they used to have like little ajumas whose job it was to push everybody on the subway. I've gotten on a crowded subway, particularly coming back from Gangnam. What line is that, man? If you follow me on Seoulweaver on Instagram and social media, you've seen me post about it before, but it was a long time ago. But it's crazy how crowded it gets on the subway during traffic hour, like during rush hour. Like the subways are coming every 10 minutes and they're all full. And like if you haven't been here for a long time, like you would think the subway, there's no room for anyone to get on. But like the people behind you will walk around you and get in and get on the subway and you'd be like, whoa, how did he even fit in there? So to have somebody sitting down, taking up that much space, like squatted down and taking up that much space is freaking crazy. Like that is a huge jerk of a move right there. And I'm trying to put like, old dude says something, my boy said something about him being a wall of China and being just inconsiderate of other people's time, because in that small amount of space, you can fit like 5 people there. So everybody's like crowded around them. The thing is, you'll never see this. You'll rarely ever see this on the subway. Not never, because obviously there's a picture of it. But it's something that doesn't happen. Like most people wouldn't do this. So you can suspect that there might be something wrong with this dude. And I imagine if that many people aren't saying anything, particularly older Korean men aren't saying anything to him, then don't be the one to say anything to him, man. I've mentioned fighting in Korea before. It ain't like you can just tell him, hey, get up or you'll get knocked out, and then you can knock him, and like y'all can just throw hands and it'd be over. Like you're gonna be coming out the pocket like thousands of dollars. So there's no point whether you win or not, unless you get beat up real bad. Then you won't come out the pocket at all. He'll just pay you. So if you can take an ass whooping, man, like say something to somebody like this, and then let them punch you in the face, and then you just take them to court. I wouldn't say anything to him. If he's doing this on a subway, he is not a normal person. He's a little bit. He may be touched, or he might be like super gangster. Although that backpack doesn't suggest that he's very, very gangster at all. So on to the events. This is crazy. That's just something that's funny. I've never seen anybody do that before. What balls does it take to do that on the subway when everybody's like crowded around behind you? It couldn't have been as crowded as the subways I've seen. Not when I used to come back from Gangnam. Like I used to do this informal internship in Gangnam because I was trying to learn how to develop apps for you guys, and but I ended up like going away from that direction. I should have never said it was for you guys because then it makes it look like I abandoned the idea. But I did. It was too hard, man. It was hard to develop an app. But I have literally been on the subway where, like, when the door closed, it was like, it like pushed my lips to the side. Like it was right here. Like there was barely any room. So I understand what you mean. I understand what my man means when he says it's like traffic hour and this dude is just fucking up the church's chicken. So on to upcoming events. I mentioned that I will probably be going to an event this weekend, and it's this one, bio wine and vegan food. I'm sure that means vegan food, not vegetarian food. It's actually being put on at Vineworks, and actually Vineworks is one of my little joints, man. It's like one of my favorite places to go, but I don't get to go there that often because it is in Hongdae. And to get out and go over there is a little bit of it's not far. But like the logistics, I don't know, man. Am I getting old? Like that might be what it is. Like me and the wife, like we don't really want to go all the way out there. But we used to. When my boy was here, man, that's the thing. I always talk about the high turnover here in Korea. I had a buddy here named Paul, and he and his wife Soda and I used to go out, and me and Uni used to go out all the time, and we used to always have fun. We used to always be in freaking Hongdae, but that has not been the case as of late. Although we've been to this place pretty recently. This was actually shared by somebody who I really recommend. It's Haley Bradley. Haley Bradley? I think it's Haley Bradley of the Soul of Soul blog. She actually put I trust her with my time. She puts on events and like shares events and makes mention of events that are really good to go to. Not only that, Ian is a good guy. He actually owns Vineworks, and he puts things together. He's a British guy, and he really takes the snobbery out of wine tasting and things like that. He's a real cool guy. So I do want to go to this. And it's veggie food. I'm sorry, not vegan food. I've got no problem with like vegetarian food. And buy wine. Sounds like a good event, and they always have a decent turnout. Sometimes it's too decent, man. Like sometimes it's like packed. Not enough. The venue's like 3 floors, and it doesn't have enough room for everybody that's gonna be there. But this is happening on November 4th. Actually, let me jump over and give you a little bit more information. I apologize. I didn't actually go through and put these in my notes. I just left the site up. It's gonna be at Vineworks. Food will be provided. Morocco Cafe will be on the scene with a trio of cooked salads, including zalouk, takauka, and bakauka. Man, I don't even know how to say this stuff. But I'll go ahead. But the link is in the description, so go to the link, check it out. If you're here in Korea and it's something that you're interested in, be sure to stop by, because this is being put on by cool people, and it sounds like it's going to be a good event. I really do want to go, but I'm not sure of what I have going on this weekend. Uni might have our weekend booked up. And Hallie Bradley I'm going to get her on the show and interview her so she can tell you her story about living in Korea, because her husband's Korean, the child half Korean, and it's like the almost exact reverse of me and Uni. You see a lot of back in the day, not now, but maybe until like 3 years ago, you would see a lot of foreign male couples with Korean women, and you didn't see a lot of Korean male couples with foreign women. And so when you see that, some part of me, when I see that, I just get like, I don't know, I just like to see it on the other end, get a little excited. I'll probably go back into that. It's 30 going. That's a lot of people for Ian's joint, man. That's a lot of people for Vineworks. 30 going and 185 interested. I'm not gonna say that's super crowded, but I'm also not gonna say that you're gonna have a lot of room. I would get there early if you want to go to that. On to the next event. This was actually shared by, I think I saw this was actually shared by Kate. I don't forget her last name. She's got that girl Kate. She's also a blogger here in Korea, and she shared this Stand Up Seoul. And Stand Up Seoul seems like, and I'm hoping, like I kind of jumped to conclusions, but I'm guessing it's like a stand up event. It's like open mic at a place called Route 66, and I'll jump into the details again. So they have a monthly showcase of some of the best comedic talent on the peninsula. So it's a stand-up comedy joint, which sounds like it would be awesome if man. So one thing about living here in Korea is you get like the expat community has like expats from all over. So I don't know how well like English comedy translates. Well, English comedy is a bad example because I'm starting to get to the point where I get that dry humor. But I don't know how well like Australian comedy translates into U.S. English and vice versa. But they got a lot of people hosting the event, and they'll be there. I wish I could do stand up, man. I couldn't stand up. I get nervous standing up in front of a bunch of people I know. Like if it's more than just my family, I still get nervous standing up. This guy named Danny Cho on there. One of my like low regular people that I idolize. His name is Danny Cho. He went to Harvard after he was in the Army. That was an interesting change, like transition. But yeah, man, this looks like it's gonna be a good, cool event. If you like comedy, you can go here and check it out. 5,000 won to get in. Starts at 9:30 ish. That's my style. I wish I can do like, I wish I can put ish on the start times on this damn thing. It starts at 8 o'clock ish. Probably not gonna be right at the dot. And then Kate, I'll put a link to Kate's blog in here. Kate Carter. How did I mess that up? Maybe the beer is probably a bad idea. Can't be drunk that quick. And then the last event I wanted to share was an international rooftop wine party in Hongdae. This one, again, the link is in the description. I actually see these type of events. I think this is one of the ones that's shared like every Friday. And I've never been to one of the. I've only been to one of these events that happens every Friday or like weekly or like it just happens once a week all the time. And it was pretty quiet. It's like the regulars were there. And it was like, I don't know, it was like in Shinchan somewhere. I can't even remember where it was. The event doesn't happen anymore. But if you're interested in this event, it's at Playground Rooftop Cafe and Bar in Hongdae. And I think it happens often, man. Like this isn't a one-time thing. Like, for example, Vineworks with the bio wine and the veggie food, they do events often. But it's not the same event every time. I think this is actually the same event on a rotation. But we got 20 going and 112 interested. I wonder who was interested in that comedy show. I'll jump back to that real quick. Whoa, free drinks, red wine or white. That sounds cool. How much does it cost to get in? I read this before I shared it. 10,000 won, which covers like the free wine, 2 free drinks, and side dishes. You also all get a party stamp card for discounts. Games available: foosball, beer pong, darts, table tennis, Nintendo Switch, Mario Kart, Uno, Jenga. Sounds like a good night. Might check that out. If I do anything, I'm going to Vineworks, but I might check that out one of these times. Hopefully that's something that happens over and over again, but it's happening tomorrow at 7 p.m. So that's all I got, guys. Do I have anything else? I didn't check yet. That's all I got, guys. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for checking this out in the replay, because actually nobody joined me in the live broadcast. Hope you guys enjoy the show. Let me know if I can make any changes, make any updates, and do anything to better the show. I am not married to any of the platforms. I don't know. I guess I am kind of married to the live platform, and I'm married to the fact of ending and drinking a beer. This is going to take a lot longer when people start watching and we start getting some live back and forth going, because I'll stop and like address the issues that people are talking about, but or answer the questions from the best of my ability that people are talking about. But yeah, this is what the show is pretty much going to be like, except for that first portion where I talked about where you saw me do the podcast. That will be an interview, and I'm lining those up right now, getting a calendar set up. And we're gonna either have like live interviews or interviews that are recorded that I play during the live show, and then we'll come back. I know this is a long broadcast, but we'll chop everything up and then reshare it in segments on other YouTube videos. And then I'll be like taking like the vlogs that I do off site. I'll share those with you instead of some of these brief social media references and things like that. I don't know. I'll change things up. I'm not married to anything that happens, so if you have any suggestions, please let me know, because I am doing the show for you guys, and I will adjust as necessary. Thanks so much for checking this out. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Seoulweaver. I share things on there periodically, trying to bump that up a little bit. And then join us in our Seoulweavers Facebook group. It's Seoulweavers with an S. Follow us and like our Seoulweavers Facebook page. Share different things back and forth on that. And if you happen to be a Facebook friend of mine that happens to tune into this and catch this, I'm going to be going through and slowly transitioning people who are Facebook friends that I've never met before, that probably just sent me a Facebook invite because they saw me post something about Korea. I'm going to be transferring you over to the Seoulweavers Facebook group, because I literally only share Korea related stuff on that group, like specifically on purpose. And so if we became Facebook friends because you're curious about what I do in Korea, or you're curious about like things that I'll share in Korea, you'll only get that on the Seoulweavers Facebook group. And so we'll just kind of transfer you off my friends list and then on to the Seoulweavers Facebook group. Not that I don't want to be friends. Like if we meet in real life, then it'd be different. But like people, there's so many people on my Facebook friends list that I don't even know. I'm like, how do we know each other? And then they don't even respond when I ask them. So that's all I got, guys. I'm gonna get out of here. I'll see you next week, same time, same place, Thursday night at 8:00 with the Seoulweaver Show. It'll be the last Prepisode episode. It'll be the last Prepisode if everything works out the way I want it to this week. Might be a little strong, but we'll see. Until then, stay interlaced, guys. I'll be back next week with another episode. This is Will Brooks signing off.